Hello, and welcome to Democratize the Edge. I'm Rony Kubat, co-founder and CTO of Tulip. I want to talk about some ideas and thinking that I've had about the future of edge computing and its relationship to the past, and how do we create the future that we'd like. Let's start by defining a little bit of what I mean by edge computing, because it's a buzzword that we hear a lot now, but it's important that we sort of come to a sense as to what it is. And so what I mean by that is that it's computing that's really happening where the data is being generated and being created and being used. And it's not as much relying on the cloud for everything, even though the cloud can certainly be involved in that. I think that The Verge put it really great in an article of theirs. They wrote, "It means that the cloud is coming to you." So in the last decade or more that we've had of great advances in cloud computing, a lot of those technologies are now starting to come to the edge, to the computers that are sitting in the field. And so what does this mean for us if we think about things also historically? In the history of computing, we've been bouncing back and forth between decentralized and centralized, and goes back from the very early days of big iron computing, the VAXs, where you had VT100 terminals that were really just displays and keyboards for a hunk of big iron of real compute that's centralized, where the work would be done. And this was in part because these computers were very expensive, and so having these dumb terminals made it cost effective and made it easy for centralized control over complex systems, which there wasn't have the same ease of use that we've grown accustomed to, the computers and supercomputers that we hold in our hands. Then sort of the 80s came along, and we had the advent of the PC, the personal computer. This is, in a sense, the first notion of edge computation, because data and the interfaces and the computing is happening where the people are. When you started to have local area networks, then you'd allow for touch points to centralization that can start to come into place. But this is a real first push into the edge. We transitioned then in the 90s and in the 2000s, with the advent of the web, we became very centralized again. A lot of the actual compute was happening in data centers. And this is where a lot of the technology that's been developed about the management of these fleets of servers in the cloud came into existence. And to the advantages of that central management, central ability to update and maintain security of these devices. Now the supercomputers are back in our pockets, right? Back to the edge, but now it's a little bit in a middle. We have computing that's happening, that's running in our hands or on the devices, our PCs, our laptops, but they are fundamentally connected still to the cloud. There's still a lot of data exchange that's taking place there. And then the other kind of key element of this is that there's been an enormous proliferation of different tools that allow the individual to take control over their own device, to create new experiences for their devices. So what does this mean for the notion of edge computing, especially so for when the edge doesn't even mean involving a screen and a person that's on the other side of that screen? The thesis, sort of a belief that I think I've come to, is that in this swing between complete decentralization to centralization and control, this middle ground, this world that we're starting to live in now, is one of democratization. It's something that allows for a hybrid, the best of both worlds, so to speak. Resiliency to network interruptions that comes from the decentralization, while at the same time the ability to maintain some control that comes with centralization. So let me speak a little bit to what I mean by democratization here. This is fundamentally about making stuff accessible to everybody. Right? It means that an individual is able to, set up and update their own edge. It's about giving the power to those people, and importantly, it's about sort of making it indistinguishable as to what's really in the cloud and what's really computing at the edge itself. So ultimately, as a user of these kinds of devices, in some sense, I don't care if it's in the cloud or it's the edge. What I care about is the functionality that it is enabling and the value that it's providing to me. So this swing between decentralized and centralized, and then ultimately moving to a more democratized center, is something that we've seen now across multiple different industries and domains. For example, let's take a look at the brewing industry. So it used to be that your local monks would be brewing your beer. Their distribution of the beer was very local, and the recipes being passed down from generation to generation. That led to a centralized world in which you had massive manufacture of the beers and a large distribution network to allow those to be distributed far and wide. Now, with that, that meant that having a beer in Chicago or having a beer in Los Angeles, you have some expectations and some guarantees about what it would taste like and the safety around that, but at a cost of the varieties of different kinds of flavors that you could have. The world that we live in now is sort of democratized in the sense that it's a bit of the best of both worlds. You still have some centralized distributors and creation of the products, but you also have the local brew pub that can give you a huge variety of different artisanal beers, and at the same time hook into the distribution network in order to distribute those local beers pretty far and wide. A similar thing happened within the music industry. Sort of before the mass distribution of printed music, you'd have the traveling troubadours that would come around to perform. After the printing and after the invention of recorded music, we started to have centralization. The radio that would be the tastemakers and the distribution of the same recording of the same artist throughout the world. Nowadays, we are in the democratized best of both worlds. You still have these large distributors of music, you still have the top 10, but you have a set of tools that allows an individual to create music that is at a high level of quality and a distribution through the internet that allows that music to be heard worldwide. And so you have a huge variety of music that comes out of that as well. So if we want to bring the same notion of democratization to the edge, how would we do it? So I think that first we need to start with some good ingredients. And the criteria for those ingredients are, I see these three. The first is that the edge needs to be easy to set up and easy to troubleshoot. Easy to set up because I want to be able to get into it fast. I want to be able to deploy these edge devices and edge computers very quickly. And when stuff inevitably does go wrong, I want to be able to figure out why it's going wrong and be able to address those issues very quickly. The second is I need to think about the control and the centralized control around that is allowing me to scale. And first and foremost among those being the considerations around security. How do I maintain the security of my network of devices and prevent them from hurting me, from leaking information, or hurting others? The third is, does this support experimentation? Does the tool or the ingredient allow me to experiment? Because it's through the experimentation that I'm enabling everybody to create their own experiences. So with these criteria for the ingredients, I see 5 key ingredients for the democratization of the edge. The first is flexibility. I need to be able to solve a variety of different problems, and the tools that I use need to be flexible to be able to allow me to do that. The second is openness. To allow for a true democratization and ability for anybody to be able to start going in and deploying these and creating solutions, I need the ability to share. I need to be able to share my solutions and to learn from solutions that have been shared with me. The third is the ecosystem. What are all the different things that I can connect to? And from these building blocks, how do I connect them in ways that are allowing me to get to a real solution? The fourth is cost effectiveness. I think this sort of stands on its own, but this is especially true when I start thinking about making a decision across scaling these edge devices or these edge computers throughout my organization and to be able to do that in a cost-effective way. And then the fifth is performance. And this is ultimately, I think, the big reason why we choose to go to edge computing, because it allows us to be performant even in the event of there's an interruption from centralized cloud. Now that we have these ingredients, how do we put them all together? And so here are the 4 steps as I really see them as being critical for the democratization of the edge. When we want to democratize the edge, we need to look for flexibility and the freedom of movement that is allowing us to be agile in our operations. I want to be able to change things as the world around me changes. And I want that freedom of movement means that I can take a solution and try it in another place. I can adapt from my solution in different ways. The second is that I should favor the tools that allow for iteration and remote deployment. And these really, they go hand in hand, because the first time that I try to deploy a solution, there's going to be problems. And so I want to be able to learn and change and iterate quickly. And being able to deploy remotely is what is an enabler to let those iterations happen quickly and in a cost-effective manner. The third is to be able to start small and expand gradually. By starting small, I'm able to find the value quickly and then use that to justify the expansions. Take advantage of this iterative mindset that we talked about earlier. If I have an all or nothing type deployment, what ends up happening is that there's a lot more risk on that deployment, risk and potential cost that's associated with it. And then the fourth, and I think this is probably the single most important thing, if you were to take anything away from this presentation, is an organizational one. It's to give space within the organization for the team and the people who are doing it, allow them to fail. Because it is only through the failure that we learn from these mistakes. And it's the faster that we're able to fail, that we're able to iterate. If our team members feel that they can fail and they feel supported in that, this gives them the freedom to use their own creativity to the maximum and to be as curious about the kinds of solutions that they can bring. And it's ultimately through the cultivation of the team and this ability to fail that allows for the success of a democratized edge. So with this recipe for the democratization of the edge, today we have a variety of different discussions and talks about other people's perspectives of what this could mean for the future. So I'm very excited to hear what folks are going to say. I'm really excited to have you here. But it wouldn't be sort of an event like this without one more thing. And so I'm really excited to announce 2 new key products within Tulip. The first is the Edge IO. The Edge IO is a new edge hardware that is open, it is performant, and is giving a variety of new capabilities and features to the Tulip app builder. And the second is Vision 2.0. This is a new set of capabilities that brings the computing of computer vision to the edge. And with those new capabilities, with those new detectors, is making for a much more new set of rich applications that can be built with that. So I'm very excited to show you a bit more of that through some demos and discussions. Enjoy the afternoon.
Introducing Edge IO, a Wi-Fi enabled, easy to implement, low-cost edge device from Tulip. Equip frontline workers at the edge with cost-effective, intuitive displays, IIoT, and machine connectivity. Connect what you want with GPIO, USB, RS-232, integrated Tulip Light Kit ports, and much more. Edge IO makes it easy to connect networked and stranded machines with OPC UA, Node-RED, and industrial-grade plug-and-play current and vibration measurement sensors. Forgo expensive computers and tablets by running Tulip apps on Edge IO and connecting to touchscreen monitors. Edge IO enables you to gain powerful insights with flexible, high-performance data collection from more devices at higher frequency and speed. Edge IO is coming soon to the Tulip platform.
Imagine outfitting your stations and equipping your frontline workers with powerful computer vision technology. You can with Tulip Vision, all without coding or proprietary cameras. Detect activity in colors, track jigs, read text and codes, and take snapshots. Incorporate vision-detected events and data into your Tulip apps with triggers and IIoT. Create error-proof workflows, effortless documentation, product tracking, and more. Leverage Vision APIs to train machine learning models. Visit tulip.co to learn more and to get started today.